Hello everyone, welcome to a new session on biochemistry. Here we are going to deal with a metabolic pathway, that is a Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle, it is otherwise referred as citric acid cycle or tricarboxylic acid cycle. Um, in the 19th century, biologists they observed that in the absence of oxygen, that is an anaerobic condition, the cells produce either lactic acid or ethanol. That is lactic acid in skeletal muscles, and in yeast we can see ethanol being produced. But in the presence of oxygen, that is an aerobic condition, the cells produce carbon dioxide and water with the consumption of oxygen. So efforts were made to study the pathway of these aerobic metabolism, and this led to the discovery of the citric acid cycle or the Krebs cycle. The studies were conducted mainly by Hans Krebs, and the Krebs cycle was elucidated in the year. Completed in the year 1937 based on the studies of oxygen consumption in the pigeon breast muscle. And for this study, Hans Krebs was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in the year 1953. We can see that this citric acid cycle, it accounts for about two-thirds of the total oxidation of carbon compounds. It is a final common oxidative pathway for carbohydrates, fats, and amino acids, and hence almost like about two-thirds of the total oxidation of carbon compounds in most of the cells happens by citric acid cycle. And we can see that the major end products of the Krebs cycle is carbon dioxide as well as high energy electrons which are produced in the form of NADH. So carbon dioxide and high energy electrons are the end products in the case of Krebs cycle. The carbon dioxide, it is being expelled out from the cell and from the organism as a waste product, while the electrons which are produced, the high energy electrons which are produced, they are directed into the next phase of the aerobic metabolism, and that is the electron transport chain system. Okay, so this is what happens in the Krebs cycle. So here you can see this is a Krebs cycle or the citric acid cycle, and the end products, they are the carbon dioxide and the electrons, and these electrons then pass into the electron transport system in the mitochondria. So it is these electrons are finally combined with oxygen and water is being produced. So as such, the aerobic metabolism, the end products are carbon dioxide and water. Fine. The location, so where it happens, the citric acid cycle, it takes place inside the mitochondria in eukaryotic cells, and it results in the complete oxidation of carbon atoms present in the acetyl group in acetyl coenzyme A, converting them to carbon dioxide. So the first thing we need to know is how the acetyl coenzyme A is produced, because the Krebs cycle, the first substrate to enter, it is the acetyl coenzyme A. Now, acetyl coenzyme A, it includes a series of oxidation reduction reactions that result in the complete oxidation of the acetyl group present as acetyl coenzyme E to form two molecules of carbon dioxide. And this oxidation, it generates high energy electrons in the form of what you call NADH, and these electrons are then passed on into the electron transport chain system, where these electrons are being used for the synthesis of ATP. So what is the major function of citric acid cycle? It is the harvesting of high energy electrons from the carbon fuels. I hope it is clear. Okay, now when you speak about the cellular metabolism, there are three stages of cellular metabolism. The first and foremost is actually, we can say it is four, because the first one, it is actually the digestion of major biomolecules like lipids, proteins, and carbohydrates to form the respective like products. Okay, digestive products like lipids giving rise to fatty acids and glycerol, carbohydrates breaking down finally to form glucose or aldehyde molecules, proteins getting broken down into amino acids. Okay, all these three, the formation of these three can be considered as a stage one in the whole process of cellular respiration. These three enter the cytoplasm. Okay, now the next stage we can say it is the acetyl coenzyme production. Fatty acids, they undergo beta oxidation to produce acetyl coenzyme. So as such, acetyl coenzyme is produced directly by the process of beta oxidation. Now, glucose, it undergoes glycolysis to produce pyruvate or the pyruvic acid, and this pyruvic acid, it undergo oxidative decarboxylation, that is oxidation and decarboxylation, to produce acetyl coenzyme. So glycolysis, the glucose to pyruvate conversion through the glycolytic pathway, we have already seen in one of the previous presentation. And the next we have to see is how pyruvate, it undergoes the oxidative decarboxylation to produce acetyl coenzyme. The next one is substrate. It is the amino acid. Amino acids, yeah. So this is all about the amino acids which give rise to acetyl coenzyme or any other product related to the citric acid cycle. So here you can see amino acids like alanine, glycine, threonine, cysteine, serine, tryptophan. They get broken down to produce pyruvate, or they get actually converted to pyruvate, and this pyruvate can enter the what you call citric acid cycle by its conversion to acetyl coenzyme and then its entry into the tricarboxylic acid cycle. Okay. Then another is like tryptophan, tyrosine, phenylalanine, threonine, isoleucine, lysine, and leucine. These amino acids, they get degraded to form acetyl coenzyme. Okay, so these amino acids which can get converted into acetyl coenzyme, they are known as ketogenic amino acids. Why? Because this acetyl coenzyme A can even acetic acid and acetyl coenzyme A, they can be used for the synthesis of fatty acids. Okay, so these are known as ketogenic amino acids, and these ketogenic amino acids, it gets converted to acetyl coenzyme. This acetyl coenzyme can enter the citric acid cycle. Okay, so these two are the ones which produce the acetyl coenzyme. Now we have the different glucogenic amino acids. You can see over here, these are known as glucogenic amino acids, which will get converted to various intermediate substrates of the citric acid cycle. For instance, we can start over here. Arginine, proline, histidine, glutamine, it gets metabolically converted to glutamate, which gets degraded to alpha ketoglutarate, which is an intermediary product of citric acid cycle. Okay, threonine, methionine, isoleucine, and valine, they get converted to succinyl coenzyme. Tyrosine, phenylalanine, aspartate, they will get converted to fumarate, and aspartate and asparagine, they will get converted to oxaloacetate. So all these are intermediary products. Okay, so all these amino acids are generally referred as glucogenic amino acids because they give rise to the what you call intermediary products of the TCA cycle. Okay, so this is about the amino acids, how they enter the citric acid cycle. Now we can see that the acetyl coenzyme. Okay, we are speaking about the acetyl coenzyme production. Okay, acetyl coenzyme production. Acetyl coenzyme, it actually plays a very important role in the intermediary metabolism, and you can see it closely integrates the catabolism of sugars, the fatty acids, as well as the amino acids, and it can be considered as occupying a position at the junction between the catabolic pathways of all these three biomolecules. Okay, and all these the catabolic pathways of all these three biomolecules, it will merge at this particular junction, that is acetyl coenzyme. Right, now we will see how the pyruvic acid, it is getting converted to acetyl coenzyme, and that is considered to be the first step into the entry of the entry into the citric acid cycle. Okay, so we are going to speak about the acetyl coenzyme production from pyruvate specifically. Okay, and later we will see acetyl coenzyme oxidation that takes place in the citric acid cycle proper, and then the what you call electrons produced, high energy electrons produced in the form of NADH and FADH, how they enter the oxidative phosphorylation, the electron transfer and oxidative phosphorylation that will result in the formation of ATP or synthesis of ATP. And all these takes place inside the mitochondria. These takes place in the cytoplasm, the formation, and then once it gets converted into acetyl coenzyme, the acetyl coenzyme, it is produced inside the mitochondria from the pyruvic acid and many other like pyruvic acid, fatty acids, and even ketogenic amino acids. Okay, so this acetyl coenzyme, it is produced inside the mitochondria, and